Hey there, I'm Christy, back with another tips and tricks video. So today is what to do when you cannot find a back cover. Typically this happens for one of two reasons. Either the book is not out yet, or the book never had one to begin with because it was a Kindle only book or independently published, whatever, so it just never had one. So in either of those two cases, my main strategies are typically the same. Now with this book here, Great Big Beautiful Life, this is an Emily Henry book that's coming out in April. And so I actually already made a spine for it using the strategies I talked about in my what to do when there's not a spine video. And I just tried to copy her overall vibe and aesthetic of her other spines so that they would go together well. And now I just need to give it a back cover. So typically when this happens, the first thing I like to do is just insert a shape. So I do that here at the top, and I'm just going to insert a rectangle just like I would for a spine. I'm not going to worry about perfectly sizing it because I can always resize it over here. But what I'm going to do first is get rid of the outline on this shape. So I'm going to click this outline button and get rid of that by making it transparent. And then for the color, it's really up to you. I mean, you're making it, so it's your book. What do you want it to be? But I like to use colors from the cover typically. And so to do that, rather than guess, you can actually use this eyedropper tool here. And if you click on that, you can choose any color from the entire page, but specifically the cover. So let's say I want to do this color here. It kind of all goes together. You could sort of imagine it looking that way. You could do yellow to match the spine, whatever. But I just like to use that eyedropper tool. So now I'm going to resize it so it's the correct size. Go ahead and get that lined up. Okay, so now what do we put on the back cover? Well, as we all know, back covers typically have a synopsis of some kind. So I'm going to go ahead and get that synopsis. And I like to just grab it from Amazon. So I'm just going to click here. And I'm going to copy and paste this synopsis right here. And in order to put it on the cover, let's go ahead and hit paste. And what you're going to notice is it's huge, obviously, so we're going to have to make it much smaller. So I'm just going to click on this box and we're going to change two things. So the first thing is we need to get rid of the white highlight that's going on behind the text. So to do that, we're going to click on this highlighter button and then just make that transparent. So that gets rid of that. Then we clearly need to change the size. So the size I recommend for the back cover is 2 to 3. You usually can't do much larger than 3, and you don't want to do 1. You can do 1, it will let you do 1 on Google Slides, but then when you go to print it, it shrinks it severely. So you want to do at least 2. So I'm going to do 2. And then I'm just going to go ahead and try and make this box sort of the size width of the back cover here. You can see that it's still too long, so therefore we need to make a few other changes. So first I'm going to select a different font. You can play around with all different kinds of fonts. This one tends to be nice because it's nice and narrow, dosis, however you pronounce it. So I like this one for that purpose. It takes up less space. Okay, so now it's still too long. So one other strategy I like to do just right off the bat is just combine some paragraphs. So I'm going to combine this paragraph with the first one and this last paragraph here into one. I like these three being separate because it's clearly meant to be that way, the whole 1, 2, 3 thing going on here. So before combining those, one other strategy you could employ is if you click on the spacing button here, this line and paragraph spacing, you can go to custom spacing. And rather than have it be the standard 1, you can go less than 1. And so for example, you could do 0.9 and it will then shrink it closer together. You could then play with that even more, make it 0.8, see how much that shrinks it. So if I do 0.8, you can see here, okay, now it's taking up a more reasonable amount of the back cover. So then the only thing I'm really missing now is the barcode. And so I personally like to add that. You don't have to. It just makes it look a little more realistic. So you can either just Google search barcode, like ISBN barcode, book barcode, whatever. So that's what I typically do. But let's say you want it to be a little more realistic. You could also search for one of her other books. So if I search like book lovers back cover, let's see if I can find one quickly here. So here is book lovers back cover. I'm going to copy that over real quick. And now I can simply crop this photo to only have the barcode. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to shrink it down to then add to my book. So now it looks even more realistic because this is literally from an Emily Henry book. It has the price, the category, it has Emily Henry's name. So that's something I like to do if they have other books. If they didn't have other books for whatever reason, or they didn't have other books with a back cover to choose from, then simply just add any generic barcode and that'll do the trick as well. So this would be kind of what I would do for my back cover. You could always add images or other things if you wanted to. Like, for example, I have some of these images on the spine here that I stole from the front cover. So you could maybe like add one of these, make it a little bit bigger, whatever. So you could play around if you wanted to try and get thematic with it. But really, that's typically what I do, is just the synopsis. Okay, so with one other example, so The Perfect Divorce is also not out yet by Geneva Rose. And I already have a spine made here using my strategies from the spine video, and I don't have a back cover. So in the last one, we just added a shape and filled it in using the eyedropper tool. One other thing that you can do rather than doing that, if you copy the front cover and then go ahead and crop a part of the front cover that you would want to use as a color for the back cover. So for example, I want the back cover to be this color. I want it to be exactly like the front cover is. So I cropped a piece of it out, and then what I can do is then just resize that piece. You'll notice that it makes it stretched, and so it looks a little bit funky. So if that bothers you, it won't really show up that much in print, but if it does bother you, you can always make it a smaller stretch, and then you could copy and paste it and like group two of them together. So that way it's a little less stretched out. So that's another way you can sort of make that work. So this is just if you want to mix it up and give it a little more texture than just a plain solid filled in box like this one was. So we'll just go with that for this. So now I still need to do my other strategies like we did with the Great Big Beautiful Life. So I'm going to scroll up here to the synopsis, and I'm going to grab that again. Now for this one, I am going to grab this bold line here that's included at the top, just to show you one other thing you can do to add a little bit of personality to your back cover. So same things, we need to get rid of the white highlight. So I'm going to do that first by clicking on this highlight button, making that transparent. And then I'm going to mess with the size, going to put that down to 2. And then I'm going to choose a different font for this one. I think it's a little less playful, obviously, than Great Big Beautiful Life with the whole thriller murder vibe going on the front cover. So I'm going to choose something different. So maybe I go for something a little more like Times New Roman looking. So I'm going to go with this one here. Now, what you'll notice is that they are highly spaced out. There's huge chunks of space in between the paragraphs. So we definitely need to mess with that a little bit. So we're going to go to our spacing button up here at the top. So I'm going to play around with the spacing. The reason that's happening is because you can see here, these numbers are not 0, and typically they are 0. So we're going to go ahead and change those back to 0, which will then squish it all together. So now I can add my own spacing in. So I'm going to go ahead and re-separate those paragraphs. And at this point, it's pretty good. There's not a lot of room for a barcode though. So we're going to use that strategy we just used on the other book by going to custom spacing. And we're going to make this a 0.8. Okay, so now it's squished it a little bit better. So now we have room to play with a barcode. So this at the top, I just included that because I think sometimes it can be fun to have that little slogan, if you will, for the book included. And then we can use the eyedropper tool for the text color, and we can make that text color red to kind of go with the whole murder looking theme. You can make this bigger like this. So you can kind of play around with the text that way. So I'm going to add in a barcode. Now Geneva Rose, I know she has other books out. So I'm going to see if I can find a barcode that way. So here's one here for her book, The Perfect Marriage. So I'm just going to grab it from that book. And I'm going to just crop that like I did for Emily Henry's book. So I'm going to crop this here. And then you'll notice that she also had a logo on the back of that back cover for the publisher. So that's something I also sometimes like to add. And by the way, this barcode is not super white. So remember, we can just use our adjustments button over here to the right to up that brightness if you want to make your barcode a little whiter like that. So this back cover, as you can see, has a logo, Bloodhound Books, it looks like. So if you want to add that, you could add that to your book back cover. So I'm going to see if the logo is easy enough to track down. Bloodhound Books with the dog. So it looks like this is the logo here. It's going to have a black background when I use it. So you could either just do that and have it have a black background, or, so I could just like put this down here like that. Or one other thing you can do is use that website that I mentioned in the spine video, the remove background website, by simply copying the image address and removing the background. So again, this is extra. You absolutely do not need to do this. It's just how much you really want to add detail-wise to your back cover. This is just something I do if I'm feeling like going above and beyond. So now if I want to insert that logo image, it's not going to have the background anymore. It's just going to be the white logo, which is going to be hard to see on this back cover. So I could easily just reduce the brightness all the way down, which then turns it black. So that's something you can do just to make it seem a little more legit, look more like the actual back cover might. So to summarize, those main skills that we were using were either inserting a shape or taking part of the front cover to make the back cover. The color, you want to use the eyedropper tool. So we went to the fill and then we clicked on the eyedropper. The barcode, you can either just Google a barcode or you can steal it from a different back cover. And then you can play around with adding a logo or adding an image, or you could add the author photo. So it's really your decision how crazy to get with it. But this at least gives you something rather than just a plain color back. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or need any clarification, please feel free to comment below or reach out to me. Thank you so much for tuning in to our tips and tricks series and supporting our Etsy shop. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.